A lot of clean tech companies need to sell to utilities or need to be involved in utilities, or they need to sell to oil and gas companies, or they need to sell to major chemicals companies. These are not places that entrepreneurs have typically come from. So if you look at generations of tech entrepreneurs, they sold to people like themselves. They understood their markets inherently, they just understood them in a visceral level. And what we have in clean tech, we have this great movement of entrepreneurs to the space, which is fantastic. But they don't necessarily natively understand the markets they're going after and the dynamics of those markets. And so you have to get that skill set into your company. That's just a hiring challenge for the company, because those are the markets now that you're playing in. Many of them are regulated, and we're not used to, as tech entrepreneurs, dealing with regulated markets. Those talents have to come into your company.
I see you nodding on that, David, so I
absolutely
got a comment
agree.
there.
I think the other interesting thing I'm seeing about clean tech being stationed outside of the U.S. right now is that the knowledge centers are very much distributed around the world. Germany was referred to, Spain, Israel, the Nordic countries are doing a great job in it, Brazil in a different way. So unlike the IT industries or unlike biotech, which was high concentrations of knowledge in very limited places, clean tech is much more ubiquitous in terms of knowledge pools and sets. But I think what brings it back home to Silicon Valley, like Tom and Suvi and others, is how do you innovate on that? And then how do you connect all this other stuff together? I'm very impressed with Tom's offering because it takes it and then it manages it through information systems. And then it also looks at supplies chains with dealers. Without the dealers, the whole thing would fall apart, but it also becomes another opportunity for more jobs and stimulates the economy.
The comment has come up several times this morning about other parts of the world, and Suvi, I know that the company's based in Fremont, you have offices elsewhere. Is it easier to do business elsewhere than it is here in Northern California? Is it more efficient?
Well, I think, we have to be global in this industry. It's a very global industry. So today, if you look at the leading manufacturers of solar cells, it's in Germany and China, not in the U.S. And that's fundamentally why we spanned out, because we didn't want to just be global for the sake of it. It was really to access, to a certain extent, what David was saying, access the knowledge pool of China, for example. The best way we can do it is to work with cell suppliers there who are working on higher efficiency cells, or with Germany, and we already have a German investor and partner. So it's not so much that it's easier, but I would say that it's necessary, a leader in the industry, to access globally. And the customer base is also, in large part today, while U.S. is going to grow, it's primarily in Europe today. So that's what we have.
Is the customer more sophisticated in Europe than they are here?
For solar, absolutely. Today, yes. Quite a bit, because they've been deploying these systems for the last 4 or 5 years, whereas in the U.S. it's just beginning. So a lot of the our European customer partners are coming to the U.S. now and bringing a lot of expertise to the table, especially on the project and installation side. And yeah, definitely they're much more sophisticated today.
So if the customer is more sophisticated, I'll ask you, how long is it going to take the U.S. to catch up to other parts of the world? Is it 5 years, 10 years, is it 15?
Let's see, how do I answer that? Let me start off by a couple of comments were made before. There is definitely a difference in this sector than there is in IT and other areas before. And I think Marianne and David captured a lot of that. The utility, energy, water, all those areas are regulated, they're controlled, they're, in terms of HR, they're people who have been in those businesses for a lifetime. So the change is very different. One of the things I did with the Asian Development Bank in China was a study of 5 industrialized countries and their energy infrastructure, and we added the nation state of California because it was different than the U.S. Okay? That wasn't a joke, by the way, everybody. The assignment was to look at Inner Mongolia and how it can leapfrog the mistakes of the West in energy and its pollution in the environment. leapfrog. That's the challenge, and I think that's answering to your question.
Okay.
In other words, if we go and take this year and next year and the year after in sequence, if you're an engineer out there, not the linear, we need to go in parallel, okay? And that means doing a lot of things at once. And I'm going to give some free advice, and if someone makes $1 billion on it, they heard it here first. What we have to do is not look at each of the technologies in isolation. We have to look at them, as David indicated, as systems. That's the trick. You don't just have solar. You have to have a way to store it, because the sun, I hate to tell anybody this, is not shining at nighttime. All right? Everyone understand that? And sometimes it's a cloudy day. All right? So storage is critical, because if you want to be sure that you have the power for your lights, for your home, for your VCR, for your computer, and for those people who need it because of health problems and are dependent on the electricity. That's the challenge. And if anybody in this audience can see that and how those dots are connected and see partners in this audience today, that's where the opportunity is. And it's not tomorrow, but it'll be in the next 2 to 3 years.
Yes, Marianne.
I actually kind of want to comment on this topic as well, because I think we have to separate how long it takes the U.S. to catch up, or maybe we're leading already on the innovation side, and how long it takes to catch up in terms of installed base and deployment. And I think they're very, very different equations. So Germany is so far ahead of us in terms of deployment, and Western Europe is so far ahead of us. But we're actually doing quite well at a technical innovation level in this country. So the question for this country is, past the technical innovation, will we keep the jobs, or will we just innovate and send the jobs elsewhere? And will we actually upgrade our own infrastructure, or will we be developing those for worldwide markets? And that's a big policy decision.
Sure.
Can I just add one thing? I remember I mentioned before about the Prius and the hybrid, and I mentioned the PNGV, Partnership Next Generation Vehicles, during the 1990s. When I was at the Lawrence Livermore Lab, we got a lot of money. One of the areas we wanted to concentrate on was fuel cells. The government in Washington said, no, you can't do that, just focus on batteries. So we developed a thing called regenerative braking. Anybody in here own a Prius? And look at your, that's regenerative braking. Now, how did it get from the U.S. government, that's all of you taxpayers, to Toyota? It's because GM, Ford, and Chrysler rejected the technology. That's what we have to be mindful of. Those new technologies and what's going on in Detroit today impact everybody in this room, and the advantage is just that, is we have to look at the technologies that we're developing here with the mental, or if you will, the intellectual capital of the people in this room, and begin to make companies and businesses from it.
We're coming up on 10 o'clock. The James McGregor Promise will live to see another day. I want to thank you all for coming. I'd like to thank our sponsors, Johnson Controls, the law firm Finnegan, the good folks at Dagan Kolb Engineering, and of course TBI Construction and Construction Management. You can watch us on YouTube. You can watch the Q&A online through our website. Thank you very much, everybody. A round of applause for our speakers. That's great. Thank you.